Hello out there. I'm the oldest nerd. It's time once again for talking movies with Professor O, and our selection this time is going to be Firefly. But in the meantime, both of us have seen this new film called Hail Mary with Ryan Reynolds and a um, a rock puppet, which has at the when I was first looking at it, I was thinking that how could this be anything but just kind of cutesy? And yet, I think that it worked almost as well as, say, Castaway did, where uh, Tom Hanks co-starred with a volleyball, and in this case, though, he could actually talk back, kind of. And I thought it was a clever movie. We let I just dropped a video on Wednesday for that. So we'll see how that turns out. But I just wanted to get your quick
Oh, I
reaction
loved it.
to
I think the rock puppet is one of my favorite parts of the film. And I didn't think it would be.
yeah,
Looking at the trailers, this looking at what comes after The Martian, I'm looking for some hardcore science fiction and much more, really, realistic type science fiction. And this pushes those boundaries, but yet it's got science at the forefront the entire way through. A lot of scientists really like this film, and if you're going to have another form of completely alien life, um, although still based on carbon, which was really I love it's saying this film is presuming that this is a science a geeked out science fiction oriented audience that knows some science, because
yeah,
he just casually mentions the Goldilocks, that this is a
yeah.
and he says, no, this is you're not going to find a Goldilocks planet. I think that's kind of and that's kind of he's so different. Ryan Reynolds is so different in his outlook. That's what they need to solve this problem. Somebody with a completely other point of view, and yet it still comes down to a carbon-based life form.
Yeah.
But it's just it's a smart film. It's funny, and the last thing I thought that I would enjoy, I thought, oh, good grief, what have they done with this alien? Why is he here? You end up loving the society that you learn about the society that they're from. They take the time to establish a form of communication that so many movies don't. They
Yeah.
really work on communication and it took me back to Arrival, which I love in terms of valuing communication. Both of us come
Yes.
from and how communication works and how complicated it is just from one idea to the next. It's hard to do that between two humans, let alone and let alone completely alien societies, and yet they do it and they do it well. That I thought that was fantastic.
I love the fact that they used kind of existing science. I mean, you have to have one element in order for them to be able to move 11 light years. And so they have some kind of uh, drive that's
Right.
done by these creatures, whatever they are, and they're able to make rocket fuel out of them that's good enough to keep people going on without making them a stain on the back wall of the ship. But the the method by which they do it, and a lot of people have said, we see too much fantasy and there's not really science fiction, and I mean science in the science fiction. And this had a lot of science to it. At least it had a bit of the scientific method to it, and they make up the propulsion system, they make up the alien, but
Right.
everything else has a very real and something that you could project from current technology pretty easily. And so, and I kind of like the idea of the hero being a reluctant one, where we've seen in The Martian, which was Peter Weir's other book. This actually was written first, I understand. Uh,
Interesting.
yeah, in the case of The Martian, we have the professional astronaut who is the hero, who is going to make this work because that's his job to do so. And then we have Grace in this film, who didn't even want to be there, not from the get go. He just wanted to
Oh,
get on his bicycle and go home and
oh,
teach school and leave the rest of the world alone, and was coerced and tricked all the way through until he got on this ship. And I'm thinking, despite that, he had to do the same thing the Martian did. It was basically, well, we have to work the problem, we have to do the math, then we have to go to the next problem. And they did.
that's a
And
great comparison. That's exactly right. And talk about refusing the call. You're exactly right. A hero. I mean, there just refused it to the very end. Actually, completely refused it to the end until they just stuff him in the ship, and then he's got to go. And yeah, that's yeah. The science is fantastic. Yeah, just the theme's the same. You're right. Solve the problem. What's the next problem? And then but it really was nice for to have and the problem's so huge. Mars is big enough, but this problem is so gigantic that they've and it completely makes sense. There's another life form out there
yeah,
faced with the same problem, and I really like that. Yeah, one thing that's I know we're spoiling it just a little bit, but one thing that still gets me is the alien creature is both of them had watched or the witness in some aspect the rest of the crew dying. Uh,
yes,
you've got the the cryo sleep. Just it can be deadly, and the rest of the crew dies in one sense. For Ryan Gosling. And then for the alien, he looked 23 members of his crew and all dead. Apparently, they really, because of the way they had dealt with spaceflight before, they just hadn't come across the radiation problem. Is that kind of what you got out of that?
they never really explained what it was that killed them all, but the fact is that they did explain that the alien civilization, they were ones that watched over each other. They
Right.
would sleep in shifts, so there would always be someone to kind of keep guard over. It's kind of the way cats do. If you have a colony of cats, there will be a certain number of them that will be awake while the others are in deeper sleep to keep watch in case something comes after them.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's amazing. So that implies to me that there must be a second cat in your household because when one cat is chewing the wires, you would think because of the danger involved, another cat would be to protect the cat that's actually eating.
Well, I think it only works when they're sleeping, because when they're awake, they're all over the place and nobody's watching anything. But I did get my light fixed, so at least there's that.
Do you ever mention that on your other podcast?
No.
No. Professor B has a which I'm going to dub Professor Beta has a little friend that that
Yes.
can sometimes make trouble.
Yes, Jones. He is an orange tabby who it was named after the cat in Alien,
Oh, that is
who I
so
believe caused all the problems there. He
Jonesy.
led everybody else to die there, because while they're looking for the cat, the alien would kill them all. So
That's 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 a good name for your wire eater there. That's
yes, yes,
a I was thinking of something we were talking about different formats before the show, and I thought of Professor B for beta, and all I could think of Professor O with out of date formats. We were talking about different
we both
different
have out of
video
date
formats.
formats. Yeah.
But back to I absolutely love that film. That is it, and to tell you the truth, I was looking for casting about for up here in the raggedy edge of northeastern Oklahoma. We lost our little movie theater in our town, so when I go to a film, I got to go to Tulsa, and so I was looking for, and there really wasn't a lot out that was really good besides uh, Project Hail Mary, and
Yeah.
fantastic film.
We're talking about going to seeing the Mandalorian and Grogu. It may be a complete
Oh,
waste of time, but
no, no,
that's
no. I wasn't critical. This was 2 weeks ago, but now
yeah.
Mando, this could be fantastic.
It might
I
be. It
would,
might be.
yeah, yeah.
I think the last movie I went to see theatrically was Giant. I'm not certain that I'm not that frequent a patron of the movie theaters, I'm afraid. Anyway,
Giant.
yeah, I understand the films are in color now. So
You might have seen Airport. I did.
okay, let's anyway. I certainly recommend anybody that wants to see it to that it's not a waste of your money to go and see theatrically the Hail Mary, which is, by the
and
way,
there is
the
and
name of
there
the ship.
is a connecting thread between Hail Mary and The Martian and our film Serenity. Although it basically it's kind of a Venn diagram that overlaps, but it's Okafor, because you got
Right.
Andy Weir for both films, and Okafor. We loved his acting so much, and all of and when you see that face, I think I know, watching The Martian, going, I've seen him before, I've seen him before, and then the
Yeah.
line comes up in your mind, a better world, a
Yes.
better, just comes up. And then that took us both to Serenity, and we thought, let's just do it. And oh, he's so good in Serenity, the
He
operative.
is.
Ah,
He is. He is. He doesn't even get a name really, but
right.
yeah, it does give a completely different view of the Firefly group. From the TV series, a number of people were saying the movie really wasn't a whole lot like the TV series was, and I think the reason was that they did not have a nemesis really. They
It's a
were
good point.
mostly just fighting each other. But
Right, on the
before we get
series.
into that, we do need to just say we recommend Hail Mary if anybody wants to see it theatrically. They used mostly practical effects. They had very few digital effects. The rock alien was a puppet. They digitally eliminated the puppeteer who provided the voice, and the a lot of there wasn't even blue screens. They actually used video screens in the scene where they have kind of the rec room, whatever they called it, and and most of what they had special effects for were just the exteriors. So it was an interesting science fiction film to not have so much special effects, to be more of a,
Ah,
if not a buddy film, certainly something that looks at a small story, despite the fact that that several solar systems are involved in the problem. But it did a very small story, which they say you would know this, about movie making more than I do, that you either do a great big story or you do a little bitty story. And
and so
in this film, they did both.
and to me, the films that succeed have got to do both. You've got to have that little bloody story, that character development, that where and down to such a granular level that we care. It just it you've got to have that. The big, sometimes the big stories, uh, without the character development. And 2001 has been criticized for that.
Yeah.
You get you think, it's still a fantastic film, but oh, that character, it just means so much, and it's such a good takeaway for you, as an audience, and keeps you involved and caring. And yeah, you described it beautifully. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
have not read the book, but I
No.
intend to.
Yeah, that's got to be put on our reading lists. Okay, let's talk about Firefly. This is the second movie that Joss Whedon had written. The first one was Aliens, or Alien Resurrection, I believe it was,
Yeah, the fourth
and
one.
yeah, and then this was his first directorial picture, and many of the actors in there were first films. I think Jules Stade and oh goodness, who was it that I got to run over to the cast list because I remember them
Oh,
by their
that
character names more than more than the other. Summer Glau, I think that was her first film as well.
Right, that makes sense. That completely makes. And what's so just to kind of randomly, she's a ballerina in looking at the research,
Yeah,
and so just
she
perfect.
broke a toe, and it killed her dancing future. But in a lot of, especially this film, they show a lot of her dancing skills in the battle scenes and things like that. She's
Oh, do they ever?
oh yes,
Yeah, apparently she did her own stunts. She really learned a technique to work with these big burly guys and scissor lock them and knock them around. And apparently the training was brutal. She would end up crying through the training, but man, it paid off. I mean, it's incredible.
yeah. There's even a line in here that kind of refers to that. Tell me about the part where the 90-pound girl, kicks the butt of Jane, the character played by Adam
Hey,
Baldwin. I never get tired of hearing that.
no,
So
I never get that line. Is fantastic, and there are some incredible lines in this film.
let's say
It's
something about how Joss Whedon writes. He was known mostly for Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He after doing this picture, he went on to do the Avengers, and that's the reason that a sequel was never done to this picture, was that he was busy doing the Avengers, and then other things came to light that kind of sunset
I,
him, shall we
right,
say?
shall we say?
Yeah,
That's exactly, and
which is a shame. I don't want to say that we approve of anything that he did in his personal life, but he did have a very relatable writing style, in that
right,
you always knew that it was him doing the writing on this stuff because of his uh, quirky use of language.
right. Oh gosh, going back to the original series, Firefly, to use the Chinese was just and such a neat concept in Firefly to see that the two kind of a Western and an Eastern culture then that would eventually in 400 years, Firefly is really set in the future.
Yeah,
400 years from now, 400 or 500 years from now, then become an amalgamation of Chinese and English, and so they would cuss in Chinese, and
right. That got him around the censors for television, and at the same time, it's a good guess that the dominant languages 400 years in the future would be an amalgam of Chinese and English.
right, absolutely, just terrific extrapolation of what's happening in the world, and oh, what a different view. And other than as a as a Star Trek fan, they don't call it the Federation. It's called the Alliance is the
Yeah,
overarching. But in a sense, you would think of it, especially when this film starts, and it's just a wonderful setting, and these children are in a school, and it feels like a Federation school. It's got to be, and
yeah.
and but it's not a Federation school. It feels like a Federation school. It feels like, oh, sweetness and light has come everywhere, but no.
Well, the thing that you have generally in any kind of fantasy science fiction is it's either going to be kind of like Star Trek, or it's going to be kind of like Star Wars. And they found a way to cut between that on
They
this,
should.
where
Right.
their federation, their alliance is not idealistic like the Federation. It's not evil really, like the like in Star Wars, like the Empire. But it's almost kind of like the Vogons and Douglas Adams stuff, that they're not necessarily evil. They're just very bureaucratic.
Right. That lost their sense of humanity
Yeah,
in being bureaucratic, which goes to the heart of this film. But yeah, that's well put. That what you were talking about, they found a way between, and a very realistic way at how things might develop. I mean, it's not unrealistic in some respects at all if you're looking at extrapolating some science fiction as to what could happen in the future, and then and it really gets into an interesting type of political situation because Mao libertarians really like Mao. They
Yeah.
view the captain of Firefly as Serenity, the ship, as very libertarian, and there's some
Yes.
really interesting arguments on that as to what he is. And I learned some in looking. There's an entire book called Joss Whedon Anarchist. It's about his how he's got an anarchy point of view, a point of view that's really viewed in anarchy, and they point out that they call it there's socio anarchists that socialism is the way I'm not like sociopath, anarcho socialism and anarcho capitalism, and they kind of view that the alliance is more of an anarcho capitalism. Everything's based on capitalism, but Mao is, and but actually, let me back off on that. It's really more bureaucratic,
Hmm.
and the response is to go into a little bit of being anarchy. And Mao's response is it argues, this book argues that it's anarchy socialism that Mao is pointing, but he doesn't. He has trouble with that because he really wants to be a libertarian and not have the community part. Socialism, not like communism, but socialism as in community. And so that's Mao's biggest fight. They point out that he's
Yeah.
constantly
In one point here, he's saying, we're all just folk.
right. Exactly right. We're all just folk. We're all family. And yet at the same time, the film starts out. This is his battle in the film. You can see him fighting himself.
Right.
He's using River as a tool. After all they've been through, the film does not start off in a great place for Mal. He's using River as a tool for her psychic abilities, and not as really a valued member of the crew, just what she can bring. And
Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole group of people are kind of uh, dysfunctional, shall we say? The Mal's relationship with Inara, for instance, has always been kind of a off again, on again, not quite there, but there's a spark kind of thing. Then you have pretty much the rest of the crew that don't particularly like each other.
right,
I mean, they brought on Jane because in the TV series, Jane was hired to kill Mal, and Mal offered him more money and his own room on the ship, and Jane turned around and shot the other guy. It was just a better deal.
that's James,
And
the ultimate capitalist
yes,
anarchist. Yeah,
yes, and
that's
there's a great line in the film about that too, where he says, he was talking about the Reavers and how uncivilized they were, and I don't just go up and kill people unless they threaten me or threaten somebody else, or they pay me, or mostly if they pay me, and his whole idea was like that. But once again, it goes back to Joss Whedon's writing, the way that you have people speak in this movie, in the series as well, has been more like
oh
you would hear people talk. They're not just the straight hero. They are sometimes kind of self-aware of saying
yes.
something profound and then kind of back it up.
Right. Yeah, it's not fancified. It's direct to the point, which is kind of the way they got to live. They're living on the raggedy edge, and they
Yeah.
don't have a lot of time to get too fancy in any aspect. They've got to find food, and that's where Mal battles himself with the Zoe, and I think um Jewel State, what the name of our engineer,
Kaylee.
Kaylee, yeah, are trying to find Mal's better angels sometimes, and he says, "Look, better angels is great, but I got to pay us and feed us." And so that's why I'm going after this questionable. That's why I'm. I think that's why he was justifying using River as a psychic tool with her
Yeah.
ability to, because and that's kind of interesting where we pick up from the series versus the film. I saw the film first, which is kind of insane. I
Yeah.
really liked the film. So it didn't hit me when, and this is plot spoilers, a couple of characters die when Preacher and Wash die at the end. I mean, it hit me, but I'd only seen the film.
Yeah.
And so then I went back and started watching the series, and it's just brilliant. You start off with, to me, one of the most incredibly powerful opening scenes in any film. And it's got a certain amount of exposition because you've got to take
They have to explain
characters.
the whole universe to you. Yeah.
Exactly. But that opening scene where the doctor comes to rescue River, which happens before the series starts, and then the operative comes along, and he just, he's talking to the guy that ran the facility and said, you let this incredible weapon not only be exposed to secrets that the alliance has, defensive secrets, and who knows, she's psychic, who knows who she'll share them with, but you also let her escape. And then he has to fall on a sword. It's just incredible. And then that scene ends. It's actually, it's present time, and then it deals with a replay of what happened where the operative's watching it, and then you insert the entire series right there at that point. That's it, when you're watching the movie, it's like insert series here, and then it's as if you'd watch the series, and then the movie picks up and gives you new material
Yeah.
after the series. And Mal is just, it's kind of picking up from that, what you were talking about, where they pick up the characters as we enter the film. Does Mal and Anara is or is their relationship seems to be worse off than it was as
Yes.
we start the film.
Well, in the original episode, the pilot episode of the series, she is brought on. She is in their universe.
Right.
A prostitute is actually someone of a higher social order.
Right.
She is kind of a paid. I think they call companion, but basically kind of an escort, and they're used to instruct younger people and things like that. But anyway, that's kind of where it starts there. And while he never really insulted her in the series the way he did in the movie, there was this understanding that she was there on strictly business and wasn't there to have any social dealings with anybody on the crew. And
Right.
yet there was this attraction between her and Mal that both of them kind of denied.
Right. And but it's
And so
always the
that's where it went through much of the series.
it's like in the film, oh shoot, I'm trying to remember terrific film, Ron Howard's first film to really direct, but that tension with um with the Fonz, Henry Winkler is in the film, and it just and Michael Keaton's first big film. But it's the tension between, the good-hearted prostitute, but then falling in love with the prostitute, but then she still wants to do business. And I think that tension kind of was behind the scenes, and was always kind of there, and they really cared for each other, and that
Right.
tension. But the rift is really big when the scene
But
begins,
the
when the
mask
film begins.
is that she is a paid member of the crew. She paid for passage and for the shuttle in order
Right.
to do her own business. The same way Shepherd Book came along, he paid for his way because he wanted just to see more of the outer planets, and there was always some uh, untold part of him that he seemed to know too much about how to fight and intelligence and things like that, that he must have been a spy, equivalent of a CIA agent at one time, but never gave that up. And they allude to that in the film where Mal says to him, "You're going to have to explain to me one day how you know all this stuff." And he says, "No, I don't."
That's exactly right. That's exactly. And in the to get ready, I watched one episode of Firefly kind of around this. I watched the 14th episode of Firefly. I actually didn't realize they had that many episodes, but they the half a season being, around 14
Yeah.
episodes. And in that episode, it's interesting because it's called Objects in Space, and in that episode, there is a mercenary. In this case, it's not an operative of the Alliance. It's a
Mm.
mercenary who wants to, but that what he's trying to do is get River, steal River, kidnap
Yeah.
River to take her to who knows, probably, get her back to the scientist that her brother plucked them from. It's implied. And he also knows that Shepherd Book, he just didn't even, he says, "You're not a shepherd." And, and
Yeah.
so, yeah, the past, one in the original series, Shepherd Book. What I don't think he's in every single episode, but
Mm.
is he? Does he take? So he's a member of the crew, but he's what is he do? Like Anara is going to different places for business, and she's got her shuttle. What is Book doing? What is he in the
Uh,
original series?
in the original series,
Proselytizing or
he no, not really proselytizing. He's just kind of an observer,
an observer? Just
and yeah, he's just somebody that wants to experience this and somehow has the means to do so, and
definitely, yeah.
becomes someone who is uh, fairly trusted among the others, except for Jane, who never took to him. But that's the whole. Jane never took to anybody, so that doesn't matter.
No, no, that's Jane's incredible. Yeah, yeah. Just I should have watched Janestown again. That is it.
Yeah,
that is one of the ah so so many good. So yeah, in talking about the film, it's hard not to touch on some of the individual episodes because there's so much there. So yeah, the film starts off with a rift, and not only, and the other thing that where you had brought up people seeing differences, that the film just feels different than the series in some respects. Also, after this mission, very first mission to start off the film, the brothers had enough. He says, "You're not going to use." The doctor says you're not going to use River as just a tool to as part of your missions. This endangers her, and so they're going to get off
well,
and leave.
they had this fight before they left on
Right.
it, and when they get back, she they obviously had to get away fast. They managed to get back onto the ship, and the ship blows out of off the planet, and the doctor runs up to see how River is doing, and she said, "I swallowed a fly."
Right, right. That's exact. And that getaway is and that's where the Reavers come in the
Yeah,
film. That's where we see the Reavers for the first time. Were the Reavers a big part of the original series? It has been a while since I've seen the.
they were mentioned a lot, and they were mostly known as people who had gone insane, space mad or something like that, and they were so dangerous that even Jane didn't want to have any kind of mix with them. They always tried to avoid them. So it was a matter of staying away from the Alliance ships so they don't get caught for what they're doing in various places, and also trying to stay away from wherever the Reavers are.
Right, and
So that was kind of a line that they had to walk there.
and
So yeah,
fantastic writing on Josh Whedon's part when you
yeah,
think about it too, because you're thinking here it is. Such an unusual thing. The series runs in 2002 or two, I think, and I think it just basically fall of 2002, and then it's a full 3 years later that the movie comes out, and so for his writing, he's got to think, what can I take from this series that maybe we left a little bit, and the Reavers were a great, this whole background, where did they came from, where
right.
they came from,
Well,
just to build on
the
it.
whole idea was that this was to be season two, where they were to find out the end of season two. We would have known about what happened in this film.
Mhm.
So that's kind of where it went on that. Now, the reason that Book and Wash were killed off on this was because Universal at the time wanted them to commit to a sequel. They wanted everybody in the cast to commit to a sequel before they started filming this. And Alan Tudyk and Book, that's Ron Glass,
Right.
uh, would not sign to that, and
Oh,
so they killed him off in order to make the sequel work. and
Ah,
thought, and Joss thought later that perhaps they could figure out some way to resurrect them if the sequel got made.
that's a good point. How do you? Yeah. Hey, that's where you just bring in some Star Trek, and
Yeah,
it can be done, and we'll all buy it. That's fascinating. And I one video on YouTube. It also implied that he was wanting to kill off Zoe and Kaylee, and in the writing, didn't get shot or anything. No deleted scenes or anything like that.
yeah.
But Universal said no, you can't do that. I'm not sure the veracity of that,
I'm not sure
but
either.
that would just be brutal. And that's what Universal apparently was saying was this is too much. And but that doesn't somehow that I even watching that I thought that is too that doesn't make a lot of sense. But that is I did not know about that. And so the movie starts out as a potential in other words, these were ideas question on the movie because I kind of went after some different avenues of research. I was looking at that the anarcho anarcho capitalism, and in the back of your mind, I've got a plan of thought so you can come up with it because I didn't do it beforehand. The best version of anarcho I've ever heard when somebody's it's in Monty Python and the Holy Grail when King Arthur comes across the guys that are digging in the mud and they're
Yes,
talking about what their government is. I think they may mention they're an anarcho socialist commune or something like that.
yes, I believe you're right.
That is the only time I've seen this, other than this entire book about Josh Whedon or anarchist. But it really was fascinating. There's and anarchists apparently, they don't trust. There's anarchists, and I shouldn't say just anarchy. It sounds like complete anarchy, but there's people that are believe in socialism as kind of a communal value, or kind of where we can help community helping each other, but they have anarchist feelings because they don't trust the government. And so do libertarians. They don't trust the government. And so do the anarchist capitalists. So that idea of anarchy kind of pulls everything together. So that was kind of where I was. But that was kind of what I followed. I did not follow. So, how does the movie get going? Were they looking at making Firefly season two, or was it to be a movie in the first place?
Oh, I think it was. I think it was mostly based on ideas for season two.
Ah,
They needed to. They ended without. First of all, Fox had broadcast not all 14 episodes. I think they only did like 9 of them, and they did them out of order.
that's right.
And
Oh,
they had to run in order. So we didn't know uh, who all these people were until about the 5th episode when they ran the pilot, which was the one that established how everybody got together. So that was part of the problem there. But
and they had the worst time slot you could possibly have. Friday at 10 o'clock Eastern is the
well,
death
yeah,
time slot. Yeah,
always has been. Yeah. Well,
yeah. Star Trek.
these days, anything on television is in the death spot. I think.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
read.
But back then it was a real thing.
Yeah.
Uh, the only show that made it out of that death time slot was the X Files. It started off, but I
Yeah.
think it was so strange it just kind of caught its cult following, and then they moved it to Sundays. But yeah, Star Trek season three. They put it in the death slot, and
Yeah.
they start off Firefly. I did not know they ran them out of order in that time slot.
Yes.
That's ah,
It was virtually impossible, and they preempted it 2 or 3 times too. So I mean, it was almost impossible to figure out what they were doing. But still, uh, for those people who are fans of Buffy, they tried to kind of piece it all together. And then when it went to reruns and got on video, you could see it in order and see, oh, this is what it was about.
Right, right, because they probably did do a DVD release maybe a year or two after the series came out, and there were people
Well,
that
they
fell in love with
at
the.
first, of course, it was all on tape. They
Ah,
did.
that's true.
They were the first. No, wait a minute. Wait a minute. They were actually. You're right. They were the first to go on a laser disc, but it was a HD DVD, which was the format that came out about the same time as Blu-ray,
It's
and
Blu-ray.
I think there are only like 4 or 5 people that bought them. And
we
so,
and
yeah,
of those 4 or 5 people, Professor B and I are 2 of the 4 that would like, oh, this sounds cool, and you end up with that, the you end up with a hybrid Pinto, but no,
yeah.
the
Well, we were talking about
one
that. Your joke about Professor Beta over here was I had a Betamax about the time VHS came out, thinking that that would win out. So I'm not the greatest forecaster of technology,
oh, but
unfortunately.
when you mentioned
But
HD, what is it? It's HD
HD,
DVD.
that's the reason it didn't pass. Nobody could say it. Blu-ray is
Yeah,
just runs off the tongue easier.
and it really was a format and died
Yeah,
incredibly fast. And so, yeah, this movie was released in that format and in Blu-ray. But so it would have been, so his ideas that would have been in a second season, that they put into the film, and it just plays out beautifully.
yeah,
I I will say that there is a fan. I was watching some of the behind the scenes stuff. The fan was talking about it. It reminded me even more of Star Trek 2. So many connections, that death time slot on Fridays,
yeah,
and also taking the ideas of a second of a reincarnation of the TV series like Star Trek, the mid 70s version of Star Trek, that was, they developed 10 scripts, they got actors, but then they turned that into a feature film that's similar to Firefly. But
yeah.
there was the Serenity, but there was a fan that said he was so excited about Serenity, and I get that, but he said, what where do you ever find a film that comes from a failed TV series and then they turn that into a feature film? And I'm going like,
There's been a couple.
but a lot of connections there.
Yeah, I'm waiting on the film reboot of Gilligan's Island. I'm certain that'll be good.
It will. I've heard talk. I have heard talk, and oh, I would always bring in Professor B into my classes to talk about the FCC and in FCC regulations. And one of your best stories ties to Gilligan's Island, and the guy that developed Gilligan's Island, just kind of a thumb up, a thumb in your
Yes.
nose to the who is
Well,
who.
it's a whole thing. The head of the FCC in the early '60s was Newton Minow, and
That's
Newton
right.
Minow gave a presentation to Congress that television had become a vast wasteland. And so Sherwood Schwartz said, if you want
That's right.
Wasteland, I can give you a junky TV show and make it successful. He created Gilligan's Island and named the ship Minnow, not because it was a small ship, but after Newton Minnow, who's talked about a vast wasteland. He gave them one.
Is that, and unfortunately, as our time extended between Gilligan's Island and current students, a few of them would remember, just like all my stories. They might remember. Oh, I remember my grandma. I'm talking about Gilligan's Island,
Yeah.
but oh, that's and I don't even know how we got to Gilligan's Island, but I'm glad we did.
Everything leads to Gilligan's Island.
That's exactly right.
every movie, every show that somehow they have to be rescued from something, and it can't happen without ruining everything,
Small
is
crew. You've got a
Gilligan.
scientist, a doctor. You've got. I mean, I'm sure you can make a Gilligan's Island out of a
Well,
crew.
Lost in Space. Lost in Space. You've got, it's Gilligan's Island too.
It's Gilligan's
They're
Island.
stranded on a planet, and everybody is great except for one person, and is always messing things up. That's how it works.
And we are getting some Firefly fans out there
Anyway,
furious, but this is not Gilligan's Island.
no. But back to
It's not.
Firefly, once again, I do like there is. Let me give you my favorite quote, and like I say,
Oh, there's
a
some great
lot of
quotes.
what makes this good, a lot of what made Firefly good was that they threw away the whole idea of how sci-fi works. For
Right.
instance, I mean, they called Gene Roddenberry did call Star Trek Wagon Train to the Stars when he pitched it to NBC, and then when Star Wars first came out, there were critics that called it kind of a Western in space. And so I think what they did was take that idea and make Firefly basically a Western. It was
Yeah,
Western characters have gun wheel travel with a spaceship.
right.
And
John
it's
Ford in space. Yeah,
yeah,
it stagecoach.
and
One of
down
yeah,
to the language. They spoke
right.
as they spoke in westerns, except with strange contractions like they used in Buffy, like the verse instead of universe,
Oh,
and things such as that.
yeah, and the contractions are fantastic, and of course, as you look at language, even in our just small slice of human history, as we've lived it together, there's new contractions, new words that come up, and they was brilliant that they just kept on extrapolating that we do that, and the contractions are fantastic with a Western flair. It's so good. Yeah, and to make it more overt Western. And then the other thing that Josh Whedon does is he'll give you there's a you think of sometimes good writer good that teaches about writing and I'm working on his name right now, really good. He was anyway got very good for learning the craft of writing, and he talks about when you're thinking of in your writing, you'll think, okay, what's the logical thing my character is going to do in this moment at this time? What's his logical reaction? And so you're going, okay, yeah, writers are be thinking what's logical, but then he throws in this dart. What's the opposite of that? And I think
Yeah.
Josh Whedon, and sometimes you can't follow that because you can't keep doing the opposite of what your main character or your characters would do. But if you think of that sometimes, Josh Whedon does that. It just
Well,
surprises
here's a good example of this where Mal and Jane are having an argument, and Mal says, "Do you want to run this ship?" And Jane says, "Yes." And Malcolm is kind of caught off guard by that. He says, "Well, you can't."
that is a great and that comes from that. That's exactly
Yeah,
right. That in a lot of series, somebody said, "Whoa, that's too much." No, but no, Jane said, "Yeah," and then that allows viewers to just the mind boggles with Jane running the
yeah.
ship.
Well, there's another one where he takes command of the ship, and they said, "Why are you taking command?" And Jane says, "You've ever heard of chain of command? That means that if you don't obey my commands, I have this chain I'm going to whop you with."
That's the kind of writing that it just comes at you. It's yeah.
Yeah. Now, my favorite line in this is Mal says to Zoe, "I'm taking the shuttle in closer. Zoe, the ship is yours. Remember, if anything happens to me or if you don't hear from me within the hour, you take the ship and you come rescue me." And she says,
Yeah.
"What? And risk my ship?" He says, "I mean it. It's cold out there. I don't want to get left."
That is a great line. I love
Once
that line.
again, the oft repeated line in the Star Trek original series. If I don't contact you in an hour, take the ship and get out of here.
That is
Save the ship, save the crew. Mal is the opposite. I don't care about the ship and the crew. Come get me.
come get me. That was it, and that's exactly what we're talking about. The opposite of yeah, and the leads to great lines and great writing. Uh, that I wrote that one down too. That is my favorite line. Yeah, I think in the film it just and there's others like that. There, even in the deleted scenes, there's a couple of there's a he
Yeah.
had trouble as what Josh Whedon. You can watch his commentary on the Blu-ray, and it's funny. This is what got us talking too. When you put in that Blu-ray, and it's worth buying the original Blu-rays. It's when they loaded Blu-rays with all sorts of features. It even was having me punch buttons on my DVD player on the remote that I had never punched before, and they actually worked. These special features. Yeah, one was you could hear the commentary of Josh Whedon, but then you can watch it picture in picture, and so they really wanted, and you can even there's even a control for how loud do you want when you punch a button, how loud do you want the sound of the button to be, like boing or
Yeah.
boing. So it was just it's hilarious. But the but on the Blu-ray, he had trouble. He really had trouble getting rid of any deleted scenes. But yet, the pacing, you could see why he got rid of some of those scenes.
Yeah, and most of the time, as we know in most pictures, the reason that you cut something out is to keep it from dragging down or to take you off onto a tangent that doesn't support the story.
The worst one, there were two that were really painful. One was, well, one that you could completely see cut. There's a complete deleted scene, like 3 minutes long, of Anara talking about what she does with all the other escorts. And I hate to use the words escorts. The term, I forget what the term is. In the
Companions.
companions training, she's training them, and she sees these the ones that she's training. She says they just, none of them have the background skills needed to be a true companion, and she's explaining that to somebody, to a person above her in the no, a person where she works, saying, yes, you've got some kind of refined and beautiful young women here, but they're not companions material. And you can see where it was neat. It gives a background of who she is and what she does, but it just didn't fit. But one of the best ones was Shepherd Book has a prayer, and the prayer, during the prayer, we see a montage of the planet that he's living on.
Yeah.
And I forgot the name of the planet, but it gives you the whole community. It's like a sense of refuge,
Right.
something Shepherd Book would be doing. It's like the name of the place even implies this is a place of refuge.
Yeah.
And so the prayer, and I thought that really did set Shepherd Book up with what he's doing in this film, and I think that would have been good to keep in.
Yeah.
Then the you do meet in a deleted scene the operative, at the very end. He basically says, and by the end, you realize the operative, in his own way, even though he's wreaked havoc on people we love, you realize he was simply following to the nth degree. He had belief. He was following what he
Yes.
believed in. He's it got integrity. He said, "I am a terrible person, but there's got in any overarching bureaucracy, you've got to have somebody like me
Yeah.
to make the whole project succeed." And so then he realizes that what he's been fighting for is empty. It's hollow. What, the
Yeah.
Reavers, the alliance is no good. They're
But what he
protecting.
didn't change his mind about was that he was doomed from the beginning, and he accepted that already. And so by the end of the film, he was not angry. Um, he just surrendered to it.
Right. He surrenders to him. And so the deleted scene, he says, "What am I going to do now? And what do I do with my life?" And Mal says, "Well, you just, for one thing, if you stand in the way of this rocket exhaust, you're going to get fried." So, but in saying that, he's kind of imply you take one step. It's like we're do the science. Take one step after another. Just follow your path until you find maybe redemption. But Mal hated him so much, I don't think he wanted to think about that character's redemption,
I don't think
because
so. And in
yeah,
fact, in the scene that they actually put in was that he says, I'm probably will never see you again because somebody will probably kill you. He said, I'd kill you myself, but
right. And the deleted scene was a follow up to that, and it's just a little bit more. And then Mal climbs
and
in
the
this
operator
great last
says, yeah,
line.
you'll never see you again anyway because I'm invisible now.
But you know what? It's interesting if you that character, and again, this is why we did this. We did Serenity, because Alcafor plays him so well.
Yes,
Such
yes,
integrity, a bad guy with that much integrity. You always want to have in your writing, the bad guy has got to have a point of view and believe in that point of view. They just can't be bad for being bad. They've got to believe in, and this guy
yeah.
is that character. Believes in what he's doing, knows it's bad, even feels it's necessary, does it so well. There's even times I'll think somebody with that much of a cause, and I'll think a better world. And that was his line that he'd say. He was trying to make a better world. He was doing the dirty work to make a better world. He believed in it so much. But here's my question. So it kind of feels like he's Mal's shadow. In other words, the opposite of Mal. Here he is defending a bureaucracy with conviction, doing everything. Mal's not going to support a bureaucracy, the alliance, at all.
Yeah.
and so it kind of feels like his shadow, but yet they kind of feel like they connect in a way. And if
Well,
if we ever have a
they have a lot in common. They both don't have a real high opinion of themselves, and at the
that's
same
true
time, they are crusading uh, in where their beliefs are.
in their own way,
Mal believing that we need to be free to be who we are,
right?
and the operator saying I have no choice in my life, but I have to do this because that's just what I'm. It's what I do.
Right. And be interesting. We never really learn about his background. That was another deleted scene. We don't
Yeah,
learn that much more about the operative's background, but he talks about the crew of a Serenity and breaks them down. It's a scene inside an Alliance ship, a deleted scene, and he breaks down, and it gives Okafor more time to talk, but it just makes him too human in a way. The way and his sense of dangerousness is almost like because we don't know him that well. But it's yeah, they are very, in a sense, they're connected. There's a connection between the two, and yet very different methods. And this is, as you look at the terrible things the operative has done, but I could also see where else is he going to go? There's no other ship he could serve on except for Serenity. So if
yeah.
I could see them picking him up later on, but
You would think it would be a different. Well, I mean, it wouldn't really affect the dynamics of the crew because once again, they all have their own reasons for being there and only begrudgingly follow the chain of command, and so that goes. But a little interesting thing that they did, when they mounted the cannon on the ship, it was a World War II German cannon.
an 88 millimeter, yeah, one of
A
those 80
20 millimeter flak
or 20.
38 is what that was. For those who know and things about armaments.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And they mount that on. That's just what the Reavers. So in other words, to look like disguise themselves as a Reaver ship, they put dead bodies on the front of the ship,
They painted
lit the
it with blood. Yeah. And then,
yeah, put a cannon on the on the top, and that's what the Reavers do. That's and
yeah.
so they were able to. They never got caught by the Reavers that way. They were able to just meld into their fleet, and that was interesting. You think so many films, you think, oh, they're going to get caught by but they never really did. I mean, they fight the Reavers at the end, of course,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
as far as like being part of their fleet and being able to slide in and out, oh, and there were so many good. Mao was a step ahead all the way through. The way he in terms of the way he runs Fire Serenity, and thinking ahead and planning, he was a step ahead all the way through. Yeah,
Yeah.
uh, including what was it? And this is a big plot spoiler, but at the very end, it's just in its plot, not character, but it just works perfectly. I'm trying to remember how at the very end, the oh, that's right, they that's right, the operative thinks, I've got you now, I have you now, and it looks like it's just Firefly's ship, and then the rest of the Reaver fleet shows up,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah. And oh, all hell breaks loose
And
after
of
that.
course, the line after that is shoot at something, shoot at anything, shoot
Yeah,
all of
that's
them.
and that's the
First
operative.
time that he is, yeah, that's the operative. That's the first time he actually breaks his solemn characterization there.
Shoot at anything.
Yeah.
Oh, and another, so many good moments in this film.
Here's one that you might not know.
Yeah,
In the Wash's line, while they're after the big battle where they're trying to land, they finally, they crash land, but they're all right. And Wash says, "I'm a leaf on the wind." That is actually a variation on what Paul Atreides said in Dune, which he said, "I will bend like a reed in the wind."
That's fascinating. That is fast. I love some of this stuff. And apparently, deep down, there's a connection between the corporation that connects Firefly to Dollhouse, or the Alliance to Dollhouse, which is another
Yeah.
Josh Whedon. But that comes that
One of
fascinating.
the things in
Leap
that
on the Wind.
scene too was that, of course, he got cut off when he got, stabbed by whatever it was that flew in through the window. But
That
but that
boy,
was something that was a trademark of Whedon. You didn't make a big speech; something would interrupt it.
right.
In the Avengers, of course, while the big speech is happening, the Hulk takes him and just beats him against the floor, and then says "puny human." So before he could finish his big speech, and
That
so there were a couple though in here that didn't get cut off, and so that they had to have this scene, I suppose, just to make sure that they stayed consistent with the way Whedon has done things. But there's never any big speeches if somebody has something that nobody in real life does, and
right.
so I think it's kind of that it always gets cut off.
Well, that's and I wonder if Christopher Nolan took that a little bit because in Interstellar, there's when Matt Damon is trying to dock with the craft, he's come up from the and it's one of the best cutoffs of a big speech I've ever seen.
Yeah,
This is the moment. This is the time, and I think he tries to open the airlock and but yeah, you're right. And Zoe, of course, that's a great point. So, what does actually, we don't know what kills Mal. I mean, the Reaver fleet, the Reavers are attacking. The
yeah,
Alliance is basically our operative is trying to deal with whatever he's dealing with in all of that. But the ship crash lands, feather on the wind. He views himself, Wash views himself as a feather on the wind, crash lands and then instantly it's like a girder almost,
yeah.
there's no hope, it just comes through him.
Well, he goes
And
into this landing area and crashes against it, so it messes up the structure, whatever they're in. But that's an awful way to go. But that's
it is
how they
it
did
is
that.
it's an awful way to go, but think of how many it actually probably should happen in science fiction sometimes. Think of so many times where the craft makes it through, and yet the crew escapes intact. When all of this structural damage is all around, something should happen like that. I hate that it
Yeah,
did, but that was very realistic. And
yeah.
yeah, that he gets killed that way, and then Book is killed. Yeah,
He's killed on the planet during a battle, and
yeah.
Mal is able to have his last words, which are
Oh,
basically, "Don't try to quote religion to me, boy." It was kind of thing like that.
yeah, but believe in something. You've got to, but
Yeah,
yeah, because Mal was really struggling with what do I believe in? The balance between that's what this book was talking about. The balance between being a libertarian with maybe very few beliefs, just number one belief, don't mess with me, which is a key thing in the film. That's what River says. The Alliance
yeah,
just doesn't know when to stop messing with people's minds. And yet at the same time to have that sense of community and that sense of family that which requires belief. And so he's really struggling with that, and that Shepard's last line was, yeah, terrific to deal with that. um the another character that I wanted to ask you, Mr. Universe.
Mr.
um
Universe, my least
he,
favorite character in this, by the by.
gotcha.
They have realistic characters usually, and now they have somebody called Mr. Universe, obviously a pseudonym for something, but they never really went further than just, here's a guy that talks like a hipster in the middle of, the Wild West space.
Had he ever, they act like they've, and this is
No,
again, it's been a while since I've seen the series. Did he ever
no,
show up in
he
the?
was never in anything. They invented him for the film.
They just needed him for the film. And
Yeah,
yeah, apparently it's a Josh Whedon trademark though to have a robotic young woman, and which makes sense. You look at, yeah, different series that he's had, and so and I thought it was perfect that one thing that when he's kind of programmed, Mr. Universe had been able to program her so that when the first person comes along, a person comes along that triggers more information from her. And I thought that was a nice touch. But of course, that also the operative got clued in by her too.
yes.
They were talking about the actors, and that's David Krumholtz, and that's he was in. That's right, a show I really Numbers. He was also in Oppenheimer, but he was
Oh,
in
okay.
the math-based show, Numbers, which where mathematics would it had the guy from Taxi, a great actor, he kind of played, I think, the father of the two brothers. But Numbers is a really good series. Judd Hirsch was
Judd
in
Hirsch.
Numbers. Yeah, and Rob Morrow, just a really. But that's where I recognize Mr. Universe. That's
Okay, okay. Well, it was okay. The idea that they needed somebody that could get the word out. I think that was
yeah,
they needed that, and they put an interesting character to do that. But they made it sound like they had been dealing with them all the time, and they never do. And
right.
of course, they did the same thing when they in the very early part of the film where they're trying to get paid, and was Fandy and the other one that were uh,
Oh, those
their
guys,
go
those two
betweens.
guys.
Yeah,
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 yeah, yeah. Apparently, there's an extended scene with them. They were trying to not pay them, but then that's when they're in the bar, and that's when River sees her subliminal programming kicks in at that point, and she starts to beat up everybody to a pulp because she's the word Miranda. She that activates. Yeah,
Okay, I found the place. Fanty and Mingo were the two characters, and
right.
they were Mr. Brown's henchmen in the Big Combo, 1955.
Oh my
They
goodness.
were played by Lee Van Cleef and Earl Holliman.
That's where those two. Okay, Earl Holloway from Lee Van Cleef. Wow,
Uh, Earl Holliman, who also was in
Holloman. Yeah,
Forbidden Planet. And
right.
they had another reference to Forbidden Planet. Interestingly, you go back to the White Planet, that they where everybody was dead. There was a car with the spaceship designation on the side.
My God, Forbidden Planet.
Yes.
That's incredible. And that.
What was the ship? That was it was
Ooh. Oh. Come, Altera. No, that's the daughter.
no,
Altera.
it was just letters and numbers. I forget now.
Oh, it's just letters and numbers. That's it. It wasn't called the Enterprise on Forbidden Planet. That's
No.
just the inspiration. But
It
that's
would take me too long to find it, I suppose. But
but that was what you're looking at. So the name of the planet's Miranda, I
yeah,
believe.
yes,
And I love what triggers Rivers. She looks at like what looks like something from Cartoon Network, that she's watching above the bar. These squids almost look like early SpongeBob, and then that activates the program within her where she just becomes an assassin. That's whatever they did to her mind that activated. But then she also was privy to some secret stuff. That's what the operative was talking about. She learned secrets of the Alliance, and one of them that was on the planet Miranda, where they had developed. They were terraforming that planet, and they just wanted to make the settlers give them a little sedative for the settlers, calm them down a little bit,
yeah,
and apparently they died they died just sitting at their workstations. They died just being wherever they were. It calmed them down. They basically became catatonic for like 95 or 99% of the population, and then the other 1% became reavers and reacted the other way. And that's the big secret that I thought that was one of the best sequences of a subliminal programming, and how it's hidden. It kind of reminded me of the Manchurian Candidate, and it's just beautifully done.
yeah, yeah. I would say, I'm not finding what I'm looking for, but there is to be said about this. They had all kinds of little things that they put in here that I thought was interesting, and including, for instance, one of the Reaver ships was one that was used in Alien Resurrection.
Wow. That Josh Whedon had done that.
Yeah,
That is fantastic. That makes sense. Oh, that makes sense.
that's the one, in fact, that they destroyed with the cannon. That was a ship in Alien Resurrection. So that's bless you. So that's
That was
also the commercial. They spent more time on the little commercial that had the encoding behind
Oh,
that triggered River,
right.
and it was based on a Simpsons episode in which the 1987 episode called "In Marge We Trust," in which Homer appears in a bizarre Japanese commercial for Mr. Sparkle dishwashing detergent. In this, they went through several revisions, and it was something like Fruity Oat Bar. Fruity Oat Bars make a man out of a mouse. Fruity Oat Bars make you bust out of your blouse. Eat them all the time. They'll blow your mind. I feel so ashamed. I haven't eaten Fruity Oat Bars. Fruity Oat Bars. Fruity Oat Bars.
And
They
that's
went
what triggers.
they spent more on figuring out how to do that than they did for most of the rest of the picture, interestingly. And the every time they would come back, um, Whedon would say, "Make it stranger."
Wow. Wow. It is so strange. It
Yes,
is. Yeah, I need to watch it again. Yeah, that would be a great breakdown just to watch everything that's in there, make it stranger, and it works beautifully. It just, there's so much about the detail of the film is just phenomenal.
yeah.
It's funny that
C
when I went
five
back
seven D. That was it. That was the name of the ship in Forbidden Planet.
and we
And
see that on Miranda.
there was we see it on Miranda stenciled on the side of a car where one of the corpses is. So
That is awesome.
yeah,
That it's it. Oh, this film you could watch it multiple times.
yeah.
It is really rewarding. Did you feel like I was just this is a random thought but did you feel like that? And I did, but did you? How did you feel like each character? Because you look at the 14 episodes of Firefly, and there's an episode just for Janestown.
Yeah.
Each character gets their due. And so in the movie, Josh Sweden is working on that. Did you feel like each character had their moment that,
Yes.
uh, yeah,
There was always this attraction between Kaylee and the doctor, and they go straight to that. And this there was the um, oh what was the other? Well, actually, he shows more of his relationship Mal does with Inara,
right?
and we get more detail on Shepherd Book than we ever got in the series. He
This is
never really
true.
had an
Yeah,
episode dedicated to him, in fact, and so this is as close as they came to that. And let's see who else. And River is much more explained in all of this. Obviously, I mean the whole picture is about what it was that they were looking for her about. So
that's a
that works out on that level there. So and yeah, I'm trying to think. They really didn't say too much about Zoe and Wash, which from the
that's a good
beginning
point.
were married. And however, there is a let's see, in the dialogue, there is something near the end where Mal and Zoe are talking, and uh,
Apparently, Fox did not like them married. They did not like it in the
yeah,
series.
you know,
Yeah.
well,
So what were you finding? It's when they're talking and the
it's near the end where he's Mal is asking for the condition of the ship, and so he says um, she's pretty roughed up, but she'll fly right. And in what the whole thing was about was she was describing herself. She's just lost Wash, and she was pretty beat up by it all, but would continue to do her duty, that kind of thing.
That's
And
a
and
great point.
what's
I
interesting,
missed that.
Nathan Fillion
Yeah.
didn't understand what that scene was about until it was explained to him later. He thought she was just talking about the ship.
Oh wow!
Reading the
Because of course
lines.
out of order, and so did they? She didn't catch the import of that. Oh my goodness, that is, and that when you were talking about the lack of speeches, that's a perfect example. You're thinking they're going to have some scene of some pathos where Zoe is talking about she's lost Wash, but it's really not there. He basically says, yeah, he asks her how she's pretty roughed up, but she'll fly okay. I mean, that she doesn't say much. She's just going to take
Yeah,
that. She's just going to keep on going, and that
yeah,
is the end of the film. I mean, it just, yeah, that's and so kind of almost in a sense, it's like so many things. It makes them less is more. It makes it more powerful by not having that scene you would expect where Zoe tears up. It's just not there, and yeah, and in a sense, the lack of it gives it gives it more power by not having a scene like that where Zoe's talking, reminiscing
right.
about Wash. It just it works.
Especially for her character, it fits her character. She's always the officious one, while everybody
Right.
else is going their own way. She
Oh,
is loyal
yeah.
to Mal to the end, and not in any kind of personal way, but it is just she's the first mate.
Yes, sir. That's exact. Always, sir. Yes, sir. She's the one that maintains that decorum. Yeah, and she's loyal, and yeah, and so yeah, she gets her due in that way. It just, yeah, the characters. Oh, I can't imagine though. How? But were you when had you seen Firefly when it came out as a series? I mean, I'm
Yes,
completely you had watched it
I
live.
and couldn't understand much of it,
Ah,
except that I liked what I saw, but couldn't make any sense of just what the show was about until
right.
I was able to see it in reruns later in order. And of course, they didn't play all of them. There were 4 or 5 episodes that never got put on the original run. They
So
canceled it.
had you seen this did you have a chance to see the series in a way that made sense before you saw Serenity?
Yes, I did. Yes,
Oh, so you got full impact
I did.
at the end of Serenity. Oh, God bless you. That's rough. Like I said, I saw Serenity first, so it all hit me ex post facto. I saw Serenity first, and and I'm going and I'm thinking, I'm sure those characters were beloved by this by the people that watched this in order, but but I was following the Fox programming. Watch the movie first and watch the series out of order. And that's uh, that is that had I bet that hit hard in the movie theater.
Yeah,
That would have been brutal. Did you go back to do you remember seeing it twice in the theater or
I did not
Serenity?
see that. I did not see that in the theater at all. Saw
Oh,
it
you saw it.
on video. Yeah,
It still was brutal when it hit on video.
yeah,
Good
it
grief.
was.
Oh, oh, that's just what a
It
piece
was
of
it was hard to see Wash go because he was. I mean, everybody has their funny lines,
yeah.
but Wash was the one that always had the snappier jokes.
Yeah, I mean, he's playing with dinosaurs, with two plastic dinosaurs in an episode,
Yeah,
and they're talking to each other. It's like, what does
right.
the board navigator do? What does Michael Collins do while Neil Armstrong's on the moon? I mean, everybody else, and he's alone in the ship, and
Well,
so he kept,
even here there's a good line where he says, "We're going to this is going to be a rough landing," and Mal says, "Defined rough." He said, "We're all going to die."
yeah, that's that's classic. That is
Yeah,
cut to the chase and in that same I think the dinosaurs was in that episode that I watched, the 14th episode, and the I bet that at least it's the last one on the DVD, and there's another line where I can't remember what Wash is saying. Wash is saying that's crazy. I can't believe that would happen. That's science fiction. And Zoe says, "We're in a spaceship, Wash. we're in a spaceship around a planet, Wash." That's just the writing is so good. And apparently, we give it, talking about where Josh Whedon came from. Josh Whedon wrote for his grandfather had written. I'm just checking my notes real quick. His grandfather had written. So, Dick Van Dyke. Grandfather wrote for could have been Gilligan's Island too, but grandfather definitely wrote for Dick Van Dyke, and then his father, God, I can't remember what his father wrote for Captain Kangaroo,
yeah,
and some other famous things, not just the ones that I can remember, Captain Kangaroo and Dick, and then he wrote for Roseanne. Apparently, he was a writer
interesting.
on the
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, I think I had heard that. Yeah,
and
and
but he just got frustrated that Roseanne was completely built around jokes, great jokes,
yeah,
but he wanted to add more of a theme to that.
he
And then
wanted
of
to have
course he
something that
goes
wasn't such a formula, as I understand it. Yeah,
right, exactly. But great, but really did not wanted to be an independent filmmaker, didn't want to be a writer, but he goes into the business as a writer with Buffy and Angel and then of course becomes a terrific filmmaker and has issues, but
and then
yeah,
ruined it all. And
yeah,
it's a shame what we'll be missing from the fact that he could not keep himself
yeah,
in check, shall we say?
yeah, and he's still young, relatively young. It's yeah, and there's mixed. That's an interest. There's I think there's mixed reviews from people that have worked for him. People still stand up for him. Other people
Yeah,
don't. And yeah, that's like a painful Firefly episode to think of that. It just doesn't
yeah, it's true.
it doesn't work. But and then apparently it's coming out as an animated series.
Well,
The
it had been there. There was a comic book prequel to this that spanned the time between the last Firefly episode and Serenity, which I never saw, but there was a comic series, and I think that they have, from time to time, done comic book
right,
versions of this show. And there's some talk of there've been talk of bringing it back forever, and I don't know if any of that is ever going to happen. But
I've heard talk lately.
there's
That
talk lately, but not with
yeah,
Joss Whedon's involvement, and
right.
because Universal owns the copyrights to all this anyway,
That yeah,
and so that would be they're talking about maybe an animated kind of thing because the actors are all too old for the parts now,
right,
and those that are
right.
still living.
Right. The anim the the scholarly stuff and the fan stuff is you mentioned the comics. Apparently there's tons for to go into the series and get more life out of it,
Yeah,
and get more enjoyment. There's a ton of background stuff, the like comics and the people that write. I've never seen as much besides Star Trek. Uh, people that scholarly type writing on it, getting into like the politics of what Josh Whedon's talking about. But
yeah,
Slayage is a journal of Whedon studies. And then Sherry Jen, a person that is really, I've seen her at conferences. Sherry Jen and Heather Porter have done some great work on editing and writing for these different series where you can read about if you want to get into the 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 other aspects of pop culture that the series connects to,
yeah.
the politics and stuff like that, and also just pure fandom.
Hmm.
Watching the behind the scenes, I've never been. One of these days, we need to go to the Comic Con of all Comic Cons, the San Diego Comic Con. I've never been, but you look at 5,000 people cheering that cast on, and I just want to be one of them. That
Yeah,
looks, yeah.
I flew into San Diego on one occasion, and it was so scary to fly over the mountains that low. I don't know. I want to do that again.
You
However,
you you didn't imagine you were a feather on the wind at the time, and
I don't think that would be the right metaphor at this point.
oh, I would. You've been. I mean, we've both been to conventions, but I think you
Yes.
have been one of the best ones that I think you went to was the con where it was the Star Trek Voyager, where you got to see the cast, and that sounded
Yes.
fantastic.
Yes. Yes. I got a chance to meet Robert Picardo and also um, Janeway. I've now forgotten her
Jane,
name.
right, Janeway. She's nobody else but Janeway.
Yeah, essentially so. Well, she
One.
was red. She was red in Orange Is the New Black, and was great at that. She was doing that at the time that we met her, and
Oh, at the time, yeah.
that was something. She just stole the show there. And anyway, yeah, I met her, and Robert Picardo is a very nice guy. Had a
Oh,
nice little chat with him, and
He was at
that
a
was
convention that you and I were both at, one of the Space City cons,
yeah,
one of the earlier ones, where he introduced the seventh Doctor Who. He became for something happened to the MC at this con. This is not the one that was at by the Astrodome. This was one of the ones that was in a hotel that we went to when Space
yeah,
City was a little bit smaller, and so he introduced the seventh. You remember that Doctor Who was on a wheelchair? He came in on a motorized wheelchair.
yeah. That was Sylvester McCoy.
Yes, who played Gandalf the Brown or the Brown? You know, he
Yeah,
was
the Brown.
the
Yeah,
yeah, and
I love the line. I love the line in the movie. Was is he a good wizard or like you? Talking to Gandalf.
that's a great line. That is a great. Well, Jewel State was at that convention, and I
Yeah,
did not. Yeah, that little Firefly connection. That you and I were both there, but Jewel State was there too. And
yeah.
but they didn't have. I think she was the only Firefly. But conventions are so much fun. That's
They really
I
are.
have
You should
so
go to
well,
one if you've never been to one. We'll recommend that to anybody that's watching.
you
So,
can dress up or not dress up. They will accept you either way. It is just they are so much fun.
yeah, and we are running long, so I want to leave you with one more thing.
Yeah,
When Simon, the doctor, puts River to sleep, he says "Eta Koryam Nashmek," which is Russian for "This is very ridiculous."
oh, that was we never knew that
A
is
lot of the Chinese curses are not curses either; they're just funny things in Chinese, and we did that throughout the TV series as well. Anyway,
that is what did you think of the music? That's you know the it
the music was something. Whedon had a first choice who wasn't able to make it, a second choice that Universal didn't like, and then they brought in a much more noted composer who did a pretty good job with it, I thought.
I thought
So
yeah, I thought so too. And oh, that the Firefly theme song. Apparently, for the TV series, Whedon wrote that before he wrote the pilot, before he wrote anything. He had the concept, the theme of you can't take the sky from me. You know, this
yeah,
idea of you know don't stop messing with my mind. That idea, that libertarianism kind of that don't. But what can you not take? You can't take the sky. Everything else has been taken, and so he wrote that song to. And that, I love that music. It's just so good.
yeah,
And I'm not sure if that song with the words ever comes up in the movie, but it definitely was surrounded Firefly and was so
yeah,
good.
yeah. Well, we need to go, and thank you once again. We have always fun chatting with each other and
Ah,
cussing and discussing the movies. So we'll be back next week. We'll talk about what we're going to do next week. Next week, uh, but in the meantime, don't go far.